I'm Cathy White. I'll be interviewing Ceil Malek, and it is the 18th day of July, 2023. Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah.
I have a list of questions, Ceil, and I'll ask a couple of things, and then we'll be off to the races.
Okay.
What are your first memories of First Congregational Church, if you can pull those up?
I came on my own. I was married and I had 2 children, and my husband was not particularly interested in church, and so I started to visit and sat on the east side in those pews and, kind of slipped in and slipped out. That's my first memory. And there was something, it was Jerry Jordan who was the minister at that point, and there was something that brought me back.
Oh. Have you ever been able to put your finger on exactly what that was?
I needed to connect with my spirituality. I don't think I would have put it in those words at that point. I don't think I knew exactly what I was,
seeking.
Looking for.
Yeah.
But I think that was it. And community, I needed community.
And so your first impression when you would come in that way, what was your impression of the congregation and the church?
Marti Booth sat in front of me, and she turned around and welcomed me so thoroughly that I felt like that stood for the whole congregation.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is a place where I can come. People will welcome me.
Isn't that so great?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she is rather an icon for the congregation. It's true.
She is.
Yeah. She remained that.
Yeah. And she's still in my dream group, so I see her every Friday.
Oh, yeah. She comes in by Zoom? Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
When did you start your dream group?
So the dream group is 35 years old, and that is probably the central experience of intimacy that I have in the church, and also a connection to the quality of community and learning about aging that has been exquisite. So we meet every Friday, and we have for those 35 years, which means that Marti Booth went from her 60s to 95, and I went from my 40s to now 76. So it's just been an extraordinary experience to watch us all age and to share dreams and to share the stories of our lives.
Yeah.
And that started in the church library, and then during the pandemic moved to Zoom.
And are you back in the library?
No, we're
stayed
still on Zoom because of Marti.
Yeah.
And because people travel and they can, they can
come in on Friday mornings. That's right. Yeah.
So it's fun. It's really fun. We're good at dreams.
I bet. Yeah. And you have had members that have come and gone. Of course, Ruth Heine is no longer with you.
We had a lot of people who came and went for a long time, and then we settled at 8. And there were just kind of accidentally 2 in their 30s, 2 in their 40s, 2 in their 50s, and 2 in their 60s. And so we had a view of what it means to age. And what I learned in that group is that aging requires a lot of courage. And I saw women taking on the very most complex issues of their lives in their aging years and becoming softer and deeper versions of themselves. So that, that's worth staying around for.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. That's marvelous. Yeah. So Jerry Jordan was the minister.
Right.
And when did you actually become a member?
When Jerry Jordan was the minister, and it was 1984.
Oh, okay.
So almost 40 years.
Right. And what ages were the children by then?
Andrew was 6 months and Kath was 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then did you take advantage of the group, children's things as the children matured?
Oh, yeah. It was really important. All the rites of passage and all the connections.
Yeah.
It was really important, really, really important. And they liked it. They liked to come. So, and they met lifelong friends, and it was a good thing. And I taught Sunday school and did all of the things,
Yeah, to stay connected with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Were you on any committees?
Yeah, I was on committees. The committee I liked best was the Spiritual Life Committee. So after Jim White came, he had a particular interest in spiritual development, and there was a Spiritual Life Committee that was headed, I think, by Siri Everett, and that's when we made the labyrinth. And we did retreats, and we started Taize services. And for me, that was an awakening of a really deep kind, and that anchored me. Beyond the social, beyond the community, beyond the theological level, it anchored me in this spiritual practice that stands me in good stead.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, I think, The Labyrinth, of course, you're right, yeah. And then tell me about a little bit about the retreats. What were they like?
Oh, we went to St. Walburga's, which is a convent. It was in Boulder at that point, and so we stayed for a weekend with the nuns who were out, tending their horses and their cows in their habits.
Yeah, yeah. What a vision, huh?
Yeah, what a vision! And their whole church was like surrounded by birds. So we went to the very early morning services. I think they were at 4 a.m. and the birds were, it just seemed like they were worshiping with the nuns.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing. And we went to the monastery at Snowmass, the Benedictine monastery,
right. Keating.
which is
Thomas Keating's.
Yeah, Keating was away that weekend, but it was another extraordinary experience. We did a workshop in at no, I'm not going to. The Carmelite ministry.
Nada.
Yeah, Nada, not Hermitage. Yeah, I'm not thinking of the name.
Crestone.
But that was pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
So there were a number of them, and sometimes they were here at the church. People would come, and like Jane Bernard came and spoke to us about prayer.
Yeah.
And there were a number of things.
Yes, I think I remember that. That was about the time that I was venturing in. Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
But that's very interesting that it's really the spirituality of the congregation then that was the basis for you.
Yeah, that's the basis. Yeah.
Do you remember friends in the church, early friends that perhaps are no longer here? Or?
Oh, yeah, Gracia Bell Haney, Flo
Gracia
Harris,
Bell, yeah.
People, the old ladies of the church who made a huge impact on me. I loved those old ladies. And
now we are them.
And now I am. Now I am one of those old ladies, which seems kind of remarkable to me.
Me too.
Yeah. Marcia Garrett joined the same day that I joined, and we've been friends all that time.
Oh,
which is, that's fun.
that's terrific.
That's fun, yeah.
Yeah.
And there are just so many people that I know, some more superficially and some more intimately. And that's, that's such a pleasure to age along with people and to, just have an understanding of what a life is and how various people in this community live out their lives in ways that I truly admire and respect.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is the question is, what do you value most about the church and community? So what I'm hearing is, of course, that it's the spiritual basis, but also the one-on-one with the other members.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
and I got divorced, so I joined the church when the kids were 6 months and 2, and then when they were 6 and 8, I got divorced, and at that point, it's like I wasn't like 100%, comfortable with all aspects of the church. But I just thought at that point, I need community. As a single mom, I'm going into a period of my life that's huge transition, and my kids also need all the stability that they can get. So I stayed in the same house, we stayed in the same church, we stayed, we kept the same friends as much as was possible, and it was really like a very, very explicit commitment to say, okay, this is the community that I'm going to rely on. I'm going to lean into this community as I go through this complicated part of my life, and it stood me in good stead. It's like it was really important.
Yeah, that's terrific. A real anchor.
Yeah, I needed it. Yeah, because my family was sort of far flung, and my work life was at UCCS, where there are communities of sorts, but not as intimate as this one. So, and I needed this one.
Yeah. It's interesting, you've used that word a couple of times, intimacy. Is that a sense that you get from the church?
I think there's a tension between, I don't know if tension is quite the right word, but I think there's I'm not going to think of the word now, a dialectic between intimacy and kind of respect. Kind of between freedom, like everybody going their own way, and then this connection that I think we all come for in one way or another.
Yes, I think that's a really interesting concept, and I think it's particularly interesting as the church moves forward. This, of course, is a major milestone for the church, this anniversary, and a time, of course, to look back, but also a time, again, to see how are we going to really evolve in terms of our community and how are we going to hang on to that sense of intimacy, but yet enlarge our then the diversification and
Yeah,
all of that.
yeah. I've heard so many people say that they drifted away from the church during the pandemic, and they've come back sometimes slowly and sometimes very apologetically, with lots of disclaimers about, they were surprised that that could happen. But I think people are making new commitments. They're kind of, like leaning into Leanne's
sermon.
Yeah, her sermon and her, just her being, the way that she leads the church, and kind of gratefully, and finding new places for themselves, like new ways to express what it is that's important.
Yeah. I was very struck by her sermon on Sunday, Jazz Sunday.
The mistake one? Yeah, it was a great sermon.
Yes, the mistake one was a great part of it.
Yeah.
When she talks about the fact that the church matches up with jazz and the idea of something new.
Right.
And something possible.
Right, and collaboration.
Right.
That it happens because of collaboration. And her pointing out the fact that the musicians watch each other, and they watch each other with great pleasure they're playing their solos. And I just thought,
I love
what
that
a nice
about jazz.
model. What a nice model for, for the church or for family or for any community to just take pleasure in one another, not to compete, but to take pleasure.
Right. And she even took it another step by saying, even if you're the band leader or even if you're the minister, you sit back and you watch, and all are equal there.
Right.
I thought that was a lovely way to do that.
Yeah, and I think she does that. It's like she kind of hands things over to, the people who are in front of the church, and she seems pretty comfortable with that.
Yeah, and people step into it.
And they do. Yeah.
Favorite memory? A real favorite memory? A real favorite memory?
They just pile on top of each other.
Oh, well, tell me then.
Well, like the mystery. It's like my kids were in the mystery. Andrew was a shepherd and Kath was an angel forever, it seemed like. And so, those kinds of things are very meaningful.
The traditional parts of the church.
Their confirmations, they're kind of coming alive at Mad Camp, all those kinds of things.
Then that's La Forêt.
Yeah. I think if I were to choose one memory, it would be serving on the Spiritual Life Committee as it was formed, like right before the pandemic. And it was small. There were just 4 of us, and we were planning small services. And there was so much, talk about intimacy. There was so much comfort and so much pleasure and so much creativity in that planning. And we had so much in common and liked each other so much that those meetings, if you could even call them meetings, those meetings were so much fun.
Yeah. Now, who else does that include of those 4?
It included of the people who were there. Now I'm not going to remember names. That's one trouble with being an old lady of the church. So Chris Reamer was on the committee.
Oh, yes.
And the doctor, the one who's the ER doc who couldn't come in the pandemic. What is her name? Anyway, she was lovely, and she was a musician, and whatever her name is. And there was a woman who does not belong to our church but came anyway. So this very favorite memory of mine comes without names.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, so you would gather together to kind of see where this, and is the Spiritual Life Committee still live and well?
No, we're down on a list, and I'm designated the head of it, but we don't meet anymore. And I think there'll come a time when we should probably revive that.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to Leanne about that specifically, but we probably should. Yeah.
But being the head of being the
Kylie, that's her name.
Oh,
the doctor. Yeah.
Dr. Kylie.
Yeah.
Heading up communion team.
Oh yeah, I've done that for a long time.
Yeah,
for a really long time. Yeah, I like that. That's something that I orchestrate, and then I get to sit back and watch. And I have to say that sitting back and watching communion is one of my favorite things, to watch everybody go forward and with their own energy and just that moment of seeing who's in the pews behind you and beside you, and taking part in this ritual, in this practice. It's lovely.
Yes, I know. I think that I agree. I think communion is a marvelous ritual on so many levels. But sitting and watching people come is really it's an amazing thing. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. It's moving. Yeah, it's really moving.
What are you thinking about the church moving forward? What advice would you give?
Oh, what people told me is that it's in the small groups that you make the real connections, and I think that's true. And over this many years, it's like there have been a fair number of small groups, and it is then the layering of those experiences that contributes to the to the depth of my feeling for the church and the depth of my connection to the church.
So you think this idea of perhaps pursuing more small groups?
I think the small groups are really important. I think things like 9 to 9 have been important to people, and I think Spiritual Life Committee was important to all of us, and I think communion is really important to people, the people who serve, and you know, I haven't really been political. It's like at one point I volunteered to serve on the council, and I thought, well, they'll take me in a minute. I've been here a long time. They did not take me. And I thought, you know, I was a little hurt about that, but my presence in the church has not been political. It's like I haven't been in that political realm with the church. It's been kind of on the outskirts, like in the margins and
or
in
very
the spiritual.
Deep, it sounds like.
Yeah, right,
here
right.
and here.
Right, yeah. So I think that was actually fitting. I think that was appropriate to, you know, to choose somebody else for that spot. I think I'm at my best, or I'm at my happiest in the spiritual realm.
In the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that the layers that go into a church, you know, that idea that I think people think, well, church, well, of course, spiritual. But then again, there are those other parts of the church that, I mean, the work even to keep the physical plant of the church going.
It's not always spiritual for all people. In fact, we had a big meeting when we were, I can't remember the occasion, but we were meeting on Zoom to talk about what our values were. And I said, you know, we haven't mentioned worship or spirituality or any of those things as we've talked about the values of the church. And the person who was responding said, oh, that's up to individuals. It's like, that's not really the church's domain. And I thought, really? It's not the church's domain? So it's not for everybody. And some people have had experiences that make them very shy of that, you know, very cautious about that, and it's like loaded. I think it's, you know, it's fraught for them, and so you know, what's important to me doesn't always work for all people.
Yeah, right. Which is, of course, as you say, is kind of a tenet of the church. Is the idea that whatever you are seeking, in whatever way you are seeking it, we are here, and you are welcome to be here with us.
Yeah, very well said, Cathy. Yeah. I don't think I said that. I mean, you said it really well.
Well, thank you so much. Anything else you want to tell me?
No, I grew up with a mother who was the daughter of a congregational minister, but by the time I knew my mother, she was not religious. In fact, we sort of went to a Presbyterian church, and I was so embarrassed that my parents didn't go, and I would make them take me to Sunday school. So they would get up after breakfast, and they would take me to Sunday school, and then they'd come and get me. And so from very early on, there was something about spirituality that was interesting to me.
Yeah.
So, but my mother sang hymns, and she knew the whole Bible frontwards and backwards, and
from
so
her early training.
From her early training, so the fact that she was basically atheistic by the time she was my mother didn't matter. But I always thought it was funny that she had 3 sisters, and she was embarrassed that I had gone to church. So she never told them. She never said, "Oh, Ceil's gone off to the dark side, going to a congregational church." She never mentioned that. So this was a secret enterprise on my part to come to church. And
yeah, right. I love that. Well, thank you. And thank you for going so deep so quickly. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.